I think that's a really important question because I think in our culture, maybe particularly in London, in work environments which are kind of at the highest level, there is a feeling that an individual ought to be able to go it alone, they ought to be able to sort themselves out, they ought to be able to deal with whatever is thrown at them. And by all means, pushing oneself, being disciplined, working hard, being resilient, being tough, those are virtues, and can often lead people to great things. And, you know, neither I nor any other therapist would probably discourage a person from those character traits altogether. Um, but I guess sometimes it's just not always possible. If we assume that a lot of what life throws at us is quite random, it's quite arbitrary, then sometimes what breaks for us might just be too much. Um, or we may not always be able to figure something out for ourselves. It doesn't mean that we aren't smart or even the smartest person, but even the smartest people, they engage with their colleagues to discuss ideas. They, share papers, they bounce ideas around. The idea that in any form of conversation, two people can usually get further than one person can on their own, I think that's quite widespread actually. So if we kind of apply that model to therapy, the idea that the two heads working together, that the kind of flow of conversation, the flow of ideas, um, opens things up and maybe enables people to see things that they couldn't see on their own, I think it becomes clearer that we're not talking about any kind of failure, we're not talking about any kind of weakness, but what we're really talking about is making the strategically wise step in order to overcome and really get to grips with challenges and bumps along the road. Um, so it's people may still have this lingering sense of failure, but hopefully if they can give therapy a try, they'll see that that's not really what it's about. That's not the suggestion. That's not the implication. Um, and ultimately, what goes on in therapy is kind of people figuring things out for themselves, people healing themselves. The therapist is almost, if you like, more like a gardener who is facilitating the growth of a tree. What does the gardener do? He kind of makes sure it's watered, makes sure it has enough sunlight, makes sure the weeds are kind of removed, makes sure the soil is fertilized and healthy. And if all of that takes place, then the tree or the plant can grow naturally and healthily in the right way, in the right shape, and kind of flourish. And that's really the model, rather than kind of, someone coming and fixing something. The cupboard is broken, so you fix it. It's much more of a kind of growth process, and the therapist is a facilitator. And, there will often be important insights and, suggestions. It's not a passive role, but it's the individual's capacity to heal themselves which is really being activated in the therapy.